It's hard to believe that it's been roughly 4 years since Rivian first entered the premium electric truck space with the original R1T back in 2021. Now, at the time, Rivian was literally the first manufacturer to enter the space, beating out legacy players like Ford, like GM, like Stellantis, and even Tesla, of course, with their Cybertruck. Now, of course, that was then, this is now, and now Rivian is certainly not the only player in the premium electric truck space. So for 2025, we are getting a significantly updated R1T. In fact, there are so many changes that Rivian is calling this vehicle a second generation, courtesy of brand new electric motors, a brand new battery pack, and of course upgrades to the software and hardware underneath the skin. So as you can see, this week, Rivian has loaned us the latest R1T. This is a 2025 R1T in the tri-motor specification. And the big question I want answered, has Rivian made enough changes to their bread and butter R1T to make this vehicle even more competitive? Stay tuned to find out. Now by now, you guys should be pretty familiar with the styling of the Rivian R1T. Remember, when this truck first came out in 2021, it was the very first all-electric pickup truck in America, beating out a lot of those legacy players. And I have to say, Rivian, I think, did a pretty good job with the styling. In fact, it was so kind of advanced for its time. As you can see for the second generation, I call it a heavy refresh, it really doesn't look all that different. Rivian was very, very calculated with some of the changes. You can see you still have the signature styling elements here. You have those kind of oval full LED taillights. It has an LED low and high beam, LED daytime running light, LED turn signals. In fact, the turn signals are actually down here, and they are now a sequential design, which I don't believe the previous, our pre-refresh model had a sequential turn signal. I also love the Rivian light bar here. This light bar actually glows green at night to kind of let you know when the vehicle is plugged in, and actually shows like a status bar in the actual grill, although Rivian did change the way that looks. And this particular one that I'm showing you is painted in forest green. This is about a $2,500 upcharge. It's actually a really gorgeous green, as you can see in the sunlight, where it has some beautiful metallic flecks. And it looks really good, of course, with the Rivian logo with the yellow background behind it. Now, those yellow accents, which I'll show you later on around the truck, is actually an indication that this model that we're showing you here is the tri-motor. If you guys remember the old model, or the pre-refreshed R1T, the yellow accents signified that it was a quad motor. Now the quad motor is going to have the teal accents, so kind of keep that in mind. If you see an R1T with silver accents, especially on the wheels and on the brake calipers, that's going to show that you have the dual motor specification. Now you can see the front bumper for this model is pretty much what I expected it to be. You have these beefy tow hooks here. There's some piano black plastic. There's some actual functional openings here with active grille shutters. You have the front camera system. In fact, Rivian says there's around 11 cameras and like 12 ultrasonic sensors around the vehicle. And that's going to, of course, aid in giving this vehicle kind of semi-autonomous hands-free driving. Rivian doesn't give you like what Tesla has with their autopilot system, but the company says that they've kind of prepped these cars for hardware to be able to do full self-driving at some point whenever they offer that as a software update. Underneath the hood here, if you guys want to take a look at that, this vehicle still offers a frunk, and there's actually a little button underneath here that I can't seem to, right there. So if you push that button, you can see it's a power opening and closing frunk. Now, Rivian actually made the front storage space a little bit smaller this year. It still measures around 11 cubic feet of space, which is excellent. And if you want, you can even look underneath here. There's a little bit of additional storage there for the mobile charger that the car comes with. I believe you're also going to find the jack and some tools underneath it here as well. This space here isn't quite as large as what you're going to get from like a Ford F-150 Lightning, for example, or one of the GM electric trucks, but this is still a very usable amount of space. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. Now, I mentioned earlier, Rivian made some pretty big changes underneath the skin. All trucks are basically going to come standard with electronic all-wheel drive. You get your choice between their dual motor performance, tri-motor, which is the one that we're showing you here, or a quad motor. The quad motor will be available later this year. The tri-motor that you're seeing here has basically one electric motor at the front, two electric motors in the rear. Those double electric motors are coming basically from the quad motor version. And because they're brand new electric motors that are developed in-house, this vehicle actually now has more power versus last year's quad. So 850 horsepower and 1,103 pound-feet of torque. So again, that makes it more powerful versus the quad motor that I tested about a year and a half ago. And then of course, there's a brand new battery pack. So the battery packs are now lithium iron phosphate. So they're LFP batteries. This model here comes standard with the max battery pack, which means 141.5 kilowatt hours and good for up to 371 miles of range. Now, the longest range version of the R1T will actually go 420 miles. That's the dual motor version. The tri-motor adds a little bit more cost and complexity and weight, so that lowers the range a little bit. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, of course, and Rivian says this model here is capable of 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, which we'll get this out on the road later on and test that out, because that would essentially make this the quickest accelerating truck that I've ever tested. The company didn't quote a top speed, but I estimate it's probably around 130 miles an hour. This is a truck, so you expect it to do truck things. Rivian says it'll tow a maximum of 11,000 pounds while carrying over 1,700 pounds of payload in the bed. And of course, because this is an electric skateboard architecture with a large battery pack, it's also a heavy vehicle. As this truck sits, it weighs in at just over 7,000 pounds. So that's right, it weighs pretty much as much as like a gas-powered F-Series Super Duty. So even though it's a mid-sized truck, it certainly has the weight of a much heavier vehicle. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here. As you can see, it's a power frunk system, so if I push that same button, it'll close up the hood for you. And I also like how quick it is. It's much faster versus the power opening and closing front or hood on the F-150 Lightning. As you move around the side profile, you're going to notice this truck is pretty nicely sized. It's a mid-sized truck, which means it's around 217 inches in the overall length with a 136-inch long wheelbase. So compared to something like an F-150, this is about a foot shorter, but it's also around 5 inches longer versus like a Toyota Tacoma. A Tesla Cybertruck, which is this car's main rival, is around 6 inches longer overall. So the Rivian, I think, is a really nice size vehicle, and I also like the conventional looks. If you guys are looking to charge the vehicle, the charge port door is actually located here. It's power operated. You can see this model that we're showing you here still uses the J1772 plug with the CCS combo. Rivian does give you an adapter. That's the one thing I forgot to show you guys, actually. So you can actually take this vehicle to a Tesla supercharger courtesy of this adapter that Rivian gives you. So as you can see, it plugs right into the CCS combo. It has the NAC plug. Eventually, Rivian will adopt the NAC plug entirely. However, for 2025, they're still using that combination. This vehicle has around a 11 kilowatt onboard charger, so you can basically go from 10 to 100% in around 8 to 10 hours on a level 2. On a fast charger, this will accept up to 220 kilowatts, allowing you to basically go from 10 to 80% in around 30-ish minutes. Like I said earlier, 371 miles of range. We'll talk about that later on to see what our actual real-world numbers are. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see this is how you can tell that this is the updated model. These are an optional wheel for $1,000. They're a 22-inch range wheel. So as you can see, it's riding on a 275 by 50 R22 tire. You can see that this right here is actually just a cover. That's all for aerodynamics, of course. And then behind the wheel, you can see there's a yellow painted caliper. Now that caliper, again, is exclusive. The yellow paint is exclusive to the tri-motor. That's how you can tell this is the tri-motor model. This truck also comes, of course, with an adaptive air suspension with adjustable dampers, of course. Right now, we have it sitting in its high setting. This actually gives you the most ground clearance, up to 14 inches of ground clearance. When this truck is on its lower setting, it has roughly 7 inches of ground clearance. There's roughly 6.5 inches of total travel. I also like how Rivian kind of gave you a tasteful amount of like a fender flare here, although it's unpainted in this area. But I also like the fact that it's not kind of like an overgrown fender like you might see on some other trucks. You can see over here on the Rivian badge, it's got a yellow undertone. That's again showing you have the tri-motor. The quad motors will have a teal blue accent, and then the silver accents, or the dual motor versions, won't actually have any color to it. These mirrors, of course, are power folding. They have cameras throughout the vehicle. I also like how they're painted or body colored, and you also have this kind of black accent. You also have this black painted A-pillar here. And then if you look here on the roof, you can get this vehicle with like an actual roof rack system where you could put a tent on the roof. My particular test car doesn't have it, but it does have the dynamic glass roof. That glass roof doesn't open, but it does give you the ability to frost and defrost it. You can see the door handles here have those pop-out door handles. And then, of course, with Rivians, they have this really cool feature where to open it, I actually have to go into the truck here and push this little button right here. And that basically allows me to open up this little gear tunnel here. Now this gear tunnel, as you can see, used to be in a part of the truck where you could basically get like a full-on camp system or a cooktop system where you could basically pull out like an actual electric grill and griddle and stovetop. That is no longer available as of this new generation, but in this little storage space here, Rivian says there's around 11.6 cubic feet of space. There's even a power outlet in here. You can literally put any kind of longer camping gear in here. You can put your runs to Costco. And this right here can supposedly support up to 300 pounds. So this is a really sturdy setup here where you can literally kind of stand on this, as I'll demonstrate, and it'll actually hold my weight. I'm like 165-ish pounds. So I personally think this is a great feature. No other truck has this kind of gear tunnel here. It even opens up on the other side. It also gives you a pass-through into the cabin. So I think that is a feature that a lot of owners, I believe, really appreciate. Now, coming over to the rear, you can see the bed on this truck is around 4.5 feet long. So that's not the longest bed. In fact, my particular test car here has the power opening and closing tonneau cover. That's actually a $1,500 upcharge if you go for the dual motor version. Standard on the tri-motor. As you can see, when I open this up, the actual tailgate itself kind of hydraulically folds down for me. And then as you can see, the bed is a composite bed, so it doesn't really need a liner. Like I said earlier, this will hold up to 1,700 pounds of payload in the bed. There's also some nice features here where Rivian took kind of a page out of Honda's playbook, where there's even an underfloor storage over here. So again, plenty of storage from the gear tunnel to underneath here to the actual bed. This area here is great if you have something that's wet, for example, like muddy shoes. You can kind of put that in here. You can kind of lock it up away in here. You also have an actual built-in air compressor in this truck. So that's something that comes standard on the R1T tri-motor. It's like a $700 upcharge if you guys look for any other trims of the R1T. And then on the other side over there, you can see there's some LED lighting. There's some tie-down areas here. So this is a very usable bed. It's not necessarily the longest bed that you're going to find. And then of course, when you want to close this bed, it actually requires that you do it manually. And I don't also love that little popping sounds that my tester has. That's the only thing that I kind of noticed. In terms of the rear, the design, you can see it looks pretty much the same. You have that full length LED light bar that goes across. You have the kind of dark accents here for the Rivian badging. You have the R1T badge here with the yellow underline. That's how you know that this is the tri-motor. And then of course it has a built-in trailer hitch underneath here. And then as you can see, no spare, at least on this one. I think you can get it as an option, although my test truck, as you can see, obviously didn't have it. But overall, the design of this truck, honestly, if you have the previous generation, you park it next to the new one, you won't be able to tell that it's actually been redesigned. But I also think that Rivian did a great job with this truck when it first came out, that it didn't really need too many exterior styling changes. Now moving on to the interior of the latest 2025 Rivian R1T. If you guys are familiar with the pre-refresh model, you're gonna kind of get into this and feel like it looks the same. The basic design is pretty much the same. However, Rivian says they've really adjusted or made updates to the software, which is within the infotainment system. This particular one that I'm showing you here is a wonderful color combination. We have the 4-screen on the outside for 2,500 bucks, and then we have the ocean coast with the driftwood wood colored interior. This is an extra $2,000. You can see Rivian, for a car company that's pretty new, has some really nice materials. You can see the seats are covered in this premium leather. I love the contrast stitching and piping. You have the Rivian logo over here. The seats also have a really plush leather to them. They are heated and ventilated, and they adjust in 16 different ways with a memory function, of course, on the driver's side. So these seats, plus the steering wheel, plus the way this interior looks with the real wood, really showcases just how fantastic Rivian is doing their interiors, and they want to be more of a premium luxury brand. Getting inside, of course, I have the suspension in its normal setting, so you have around 8.5, 9 inches of ground clearance. As I get in and shut the door, I think actually has a pretty solid sounding thunk, so that adds to that impression of quality. Now looking at the rest of the materials here, let's talk about the door panel. As you can see, the door panel is completely stitched in leather. You can see there's real contrast stitching, real leather on this upper portion here. You have that beautiful driftwood, light colored wood. This is real wood. It's a solid wood piece. It feels and smells like real wood. You have more leather over here, nice and padded, of course. And then the window controls, they are one touch for all four. Really high quality feeling controls. So whoever Rivian is using as their supplier, they just need to keep using them because it really makes this interior feel a lot nicer. You have a little button here. That's what opens and closes the door. There's also a little redundant lever over here in case the power ever goes out. And all the leather stitching continues on the lower portion over here. This model that we're showing you has the up-level interior, which also includes the 16-speaker Rivian premium audio system. It sounds really good if you guys are an audiophile, so highly recommend going for that up-level interior that comes standard on the tri-motor variant. Now looking at the rest of the dash, you can see the steering wheel also looks really nice. I like the flat bottom design with the kind of copperish accents to it with the contrast stitch, more of that wood. You have these basically two dials here that control, one side will control the adaptive cruise control, the other side will control your audio function. That's for the volume control. It's very simple, very modern. It's what you expect. You have a 12.3-inch instrument cluster here behind the driver, and then you have a 15.7-inch central display. This basically controls everything. Rivian's kind of taking a page here out of Tesla's playbook. The software here, like I said earlier, has been updated. You have really nice materials here on the upper dash here with the real leather, the real solid wood that kind of goes around the entire dash, where it kind of creates this like wing effect, which is really beautiful. You have more of that kind of bronze accents here, more of the leather. You have these dash vents, which as you can see, don't have any adjustments because they're motorized. So you can actually control the way the vents are here in the actual display. So you can see if I want to change where the air vents are going, I actually have to do it here on the screen. That's something, again, that Tesla does. You can also control if you want more heat going to the footwell area, of course. Your heated steering wheel and heated seat control buttons are all here on the screen, so that takes a little bit of getting used to, along with adjusting your heated mirrors or adjusting your actual mirrors. There's your driver profile here where you can adjust the steering wheel. If you over here, you can see you actually use the buttons to control where you want this. Same thing for the side mirrors. It's kind of the same thing that Tesla does. And then once you get it where you want it to be, just hit remember and it'll actually save that for you within your driver profile. So kind of keep that in mind. It takes a little getting used to, but it's also very nice. Your drive mode selector is here. Once you get into the vehicle, first of all, that's how you start it. So you get into the vehicle, put your foot on the brake, it'll say ready. This is the key fob for the R1T. It's technically not the actual fob, this is just the key card. Rivian only gave me the key card for my week-long loan. However, I do also have my smartphone hooked up to the car as well, so you can use your phone as a key if you'd like. Rivian does have a redundant actual physical fob, where it kind of looks like one of those like hiking clips where you can clip it onto your belt or whatnot. That key fob, if you want to see it, you can watch our previous review on the 2023 R1T, but this vehicle in general has all the smart technologies that allow you to basically use your phone as a key or use a key card. When you use the key card, you have to put the key card here, and that's how you tell the vehicle that you're in here, and then you put your foot on the brake, that turns it on. When you want to put it into drive, this little stalk right here basically is your gear selector. So it's a 1-speed transmission. You push it all the way up to go into reverse. You can see once I do that, it brings up the full 360 camera system here. And this truck has an amazing camera system. You can literally see what's in the bed as well. You can also go to the front view, the rear view, the full 360 perimeter scan view. So this quality here is among the best that I've seen in the industry. I also love how it looks with the big screen, of course. Going to drive, you basically just push it down. Reverse, you kind of just push it up kind of partially, or neutral, I'm sorry, until it goes into neutral, and then push the end here to go into park. So again, pretty simple to use. This is something that Tesla used for a long time. However, Tesla now has moved their gear selector to in the screen. So I really like how Rivian's kind of keeping things a little more familiar there. Your headlight controls and windshield washer controls are right here as well. So again, for the most part, pretty easy to understand, where there's an automatic wiper there, where you can see it in the screen. It tells you what mode you have it in. And then over here, looking at the rest of the center stack, you can see here's the latest infotainment system. Like I said earlier, 15.7 inches. For the most part, it's pretty easy to use. So like there's the embedded GPS. It uses Google Maps, which is fantastic. There's your music sources, your drive mode selectors, accessed via here. You can see there's a total of 9 different drive modes in this vehicle. However, the on-road modes here actually show 4. You can also adjust your air suspension from here, your ride quality, feel, your regen braking, your stability control on, and then there's also an off-road mode where if you want to go into the off-road mode, you can see it brings up another 5 different drive mode settings here. So this is one of the reasons why you go for the tri-modes configuration, because the dual motor will not give you all these different modes here, like the drift mode, the rally, the rock haul, the sand. And if you go back to the on-road, that's actually where you can go into sport mode here, and that will lower the ride height, and you can also access the launch control, which we'll show you guys that later on during the video. It all will give you absolutely batshit crazy acceleration. Now, this software, as you can see, the graphics have been updated. It works extremely quickly. It hooks up to your phone as well via Bluetooth connection, although if you guys are looking for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, Rivian does not do that. They don't offer it because their system here basically replaces the whole wireless phone integration. Their embedded GPS will also route you along the way. It'll show traffic, it'll route you to chargers. It actually will tell you there. If I click on this, it'll tell you where the actual chargers are. If you want to pull them up and everything here. This is kind of what Tesla does, of course, in their systems. And compared to the pre-refresh model, I definitely noticed that the software in the truck has definitely been improved. It's much quicker. I also like the way it looks. You can literally change the ambient lighting in here as well. You can adjust the driver assistance, go into your access here. We can change a couple of things. You can access the entire truck as well. You can access the child lock. So this right here takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, if you guys have been in a Tesla, this is going to feel very familiar. So I'm overall pretty pleased with how quick this is, how snappy it is, and it also includes built-in Apple Music. So that's something that GM basically doesn't offer in some of their vehicles. Apple Music, you can really only find it built in the nave system within Rivian, within Tesla, and within Mercedes-Benz. So not all the brands offer Apple Music built in, and that's what I personally use for music. So that's the reason why I'm okay with it not having CarPlay. And it also will read your text out, and you can text via your smartphone as well using your voice. So that, of course, that's all features that you expect. Now down here you can see big storage area, which looks really great. Lots of additional storage. It even says Rivian out there right over there to let you know that you have a Rivian. And then down here you can see my test car for $500 has this little pop-out retractable speaker. So this is basically a Bluetooth speaker that you can pair up to your phone. You can take this with you onto the campsite. It plays music really loudly, and it also sounds great. And when you put it back in here in the docking system, it actually will charge from the car itself. I also forgot to mention, this is a Rivian, and there's also an additional feature here where I can basically pull out a flashlight. So this is a rechargeable flashlight that you can basically use in emergencies. It gets very bright. I think Rivian said 1,000 lumens when you have it on its maximum setting. So it's also a really high quality flashlight. It recharges in the door. Love this feature. I think it's a great feature for people who are adventure seekers, who go camping a lot. Over here you can see there's 2 wireless phone charging pads. This actually fits my iPhone 16 Pro Max quite nicely. More of that beautiful wood. You have a cup holder that pops out here. I don't love the design of the cup holder here. I found that for the most part it worked, but if you guys have a mug or a taller drink, for example, it wobbled around a little bit too much, so I think Rivian could have done a better design here. Nice padded center console area here. You can see if I open it up, it has a nice satisfying click, and it gives you a pretty deep storage area, which that storage area is important because that's basically where you're going to put a lot of the stuff that would go in a glove box, because as you can see when I close this over here, there's no glove box. That's one thing that I wish Rivian would have offered. I think they put it on the R2, so that's a feature that I'm not sure why there's no glove box on this truck, but it's something to keep in mind if you guys prefer a glove box. You can see above me here, you have this beautiful microfiber suede that's included with this particular trim. You have a gigantic panoramic glass roof. So that glass roof, as you can see, is basically one piece. It sadly doesn't open up to vent air. However, what you can do is go to the screen over here and push this button. It has a dynamic feature here where I can basically electrically frost and defrost that panoramic roof. So if you look a little bit closer there, you can see right now it is frosted, or now it's frosted, and then if I push it again, it'll actually defrost itself. So it's pretty subtle, but it's also very dark tinted. So if you guys don't want the sun beating down on you, that's a really great feature to have. It's included, of course, when you go for this higher trim level version of the truck. And the seats, like I said earlier, comfortable, supportive. They have heat and ventilation. What it is missing, however, is a massage feature. I think a massage feature would have been nice, especially at this price point. But overall, for a car company that is so new, this interior didn't have any squeaks and rattles. It feels really luxurious and premium. It has a crap ton of tech, and it also makes you feel like you bought a special vehicle. I think that's important when you're spending 6 figures on this kind of a vehicle. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area. I'll show you guys what that space is like. Now, as you can see, rear legroom for this truck, Rivian actually doesn't talk about an actual quoted rear legroom amount. That passenger seat is pushed all the way back. This is pretty much where I have it for my driving position. I'd estimate there's probably maybe around 35 inches of legroom or so. You can see the rear seat area also looks pretty nice with the beautiful quilted leather, the really nice materials, the Rivian badging on the back. You also have these adjustable headrests, which I kind of thought were unexpected. And then if you want, you can also lift this up and you can see huge storage area underneath here. So this is something that, like, for example, a Toyota Tacoma with its hybrid powertrain doesn't even give you, because that's where the battery pack lives. So Rivian really did some amazing things here with the packaging. But getting back here, you can see the space. Somebody my height at 5'7", this is way better versus any other mid-sized truck that's conventional. You can see I have a ton of foot space. I have a completely flat floor here, which is great. I have some additional storage in each of the seat back pockets, which is nice. And then over here you can see you have 2 USB-C charging ports, and you also have a separate screen back here that literally gives you access to the door locks, to the heated and cooled seats back here, to the actual 3-zone climate control system. So this is kind of a feature that I found to be a little unexpected. You can even adjust, I guess, your ambient lighting back here. So this screen looks really high quality, same resolution as the front seat area. Not as big as what Tesla puts on the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck actually has, I believe, like an 8-inch display in the back where you can actually watch movies. I'm not entirely sure you can do that in the Rivian. Thankfully, material quality also is pretty strong back here. Beautiful leather, beautiful wood, real leather over here, and then you have the same high quality window controls along with the beautiful suede headliner, which is nice. There's even kind of like a plaid cloth material behind the grab handles on the ceiling, which actually matches the plaid covers for the floor mat. So that's actually part of the upgraded interior package that my test car has. And it looks fantastic with this kind of ocean coast themed interior. If you want, you can also fold down this armrest. Gives you 2 cup holders in addition to additional storage over here. So again, if you want to use the R1T as a family vehicle, especially if you want to stay in the mid-size truck segment, this is one truck that offers pretty much the more legroom than most of the competitors. Really, the only gas truck that I'm thinking that offers this amount of space is the Honda Ridgeline. And of course, most of you would probably say a Ridgeline doesn't compete with this vehicle, but there is something to be said about the interior packaging of the R1T, because it kind of gives you a lot more space that you don't really expect a smaller truck like this to have. So typically when a manufacturer says that a vehicle has been redesigned, you also have a lot of exterior styling changes to go over. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of call this car, or this Rivian R1T, to be a significant refresh of the vehicle. I mean, most of the changes are going to be underneath the skin. There are a lot of hardware changes that we need to talk about, because the last Rivian R1T that I tested was a 2023 launch edition, and it was of course built on the previous gen architecture. But Rivian has made a big upgrade to the electrical system, to the electric motors, which are now in-house developed. The suspension has been redone. We have better ride quality, which we'll talk about later on. And this model that we're driving is also a new variant, the tri-motor. So we have an electric motor at the front, 2 electric motors at the rear, 850 horsepower. That's just unnecessary for any vehicle, let alone a pickup truck, and over 1,100 foot-pounds of torque. So this actually has more power versus the quad motor launch edition that I tested about a year and a half ago that belonged to my friend Tori. That is kind of insane because the quad motor is also coming. It'll have over 1,020 horsepower, about 1,025. So Rivian says this model is good for 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. To test that, you put it into sport mode here in the drive mode. You hit this little button here for launch. You slide it up for the launch, and then you basically brake torque it and you prepare to launch it. Oh! 2.82 seconds there, and that is a very consistent run. That is insane. 2.8 seconds makes it quicker versus the quad motor that I last tested. That model did it in 3.1 on the previous generation architecture. So 2.8, Rivian says the new quad motor can do it in under 2.5 seconds. So basically, the company saw what Tesla was doing with the Cybertruck, and they wanted to make sure that their R1T was not left in the dust for the Tesla. And this thing is just absolutely brutal. This now, again, makes it the quickest accelerating pickup truck I have ever tested. Oh, that is just refreshingly quick. Holy crap, that's definitely gonna wake you up in the morning. We'll try another run here. This time we won't launch it. We'll just take it out of the launch control. Actually, we'll just floor it. Ooh! Listen to the noise the electric motors make. 3.1 seconds there. That's with it more going slightly uphill. That's without the launch control as well. I imagine the launch control probably shaves maybe 0.2 seconds off the time. It's not much, but basically all day long, if you don't want to turn on the launch control, this thing will accelerate to 60 in 3 seconds or less, which is just absolutely unnecessary for any vehicle. I mean, this will keep up with a lot of supercars out there, and you're in a pickup truck. Now, granted, this pickup truck handles like a sports sedan. I actually love the way the R1T drives. We've got that redesigned, upgraded suspension, the 22-inch wheels on our test car. Now we have the range wheels, which are a new option this year that's capable of improving the aerodynamics and improving the range of this car. But for a truck that weighs 7,000 plus pounds, this thing handles and hides its weight so well. The steering in the R1T is quick, precise, not much in terms of feedback. In fact, in this mode here in sport, you have the ride feel on firm, the suspension is lowered. The ride quality is still actually really good, even in firm. I mean, we have the bigger 22-inch wheels. If you guys go for the off-road package for $4 grand, it'll shrink you down to a 20-inch wheel, and I suspect that's going to improve the ride quality even more due to the bigger sidewall protection when you hit those bumps and whatnot. But this thing just feels really good. It feels nice and low, planted to the road because, again, of that skateboard architecture. It feels more like I'm driving like a tall sports sedan as opposed to a truck. I've never actually gotten a feeling like that driving a pickup truck. Even, you know, those higher performance pickup trucks can feel a little bit too top heavy. They can be a little cumbersome. This just feels nice and low. You can feel like you can take corners really quick in this thing. And it's just a weird sensation to be driving something with a bed on the back that's able to do so. Now, the Rivian does not have 4-wheel steering. That's one thing that some of its competitors do have. And that, of course, will make the turning radius not as good. With the big 22s, I definitely noticed this thing will require like a couple of 3-point turns if you need to do so. So kind of keep that in mind. I'm gonna actually switch the drive mode here into all-purpose because that's gonna raise the suspension up, it's gonna soften things, it's gonna make the ride quality a little bit better, the steering a little bit number. I wanna try a 0 to 60 in the all-purpose mode because that's the mode that most people are gonna be driving it in constantly. And let's see if it makes a difference. We're just gonna floor it, of course. Definitely feels like it's ramping the power a little bit smooth, like a little bit softer. 3.93 seconds there. So again, that's with it in all-purpose mode. So it actually, you lose about a second 0 to 60 by putting it in all-purpose mode. So in sport mode, you're gonna do it in around 3-ish seconds, a little over 3. With launch control, you can easily do 2.8 seconds all day long. And that's what's absolutely crazy about this truck. I mean, you don't need it to be any faster. Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh! You can literally feel the front end lifting up, the rear, you can feel the tires slipping a little bit, the 2 electric motors at the back trying to give you true torque vectoring, of course. I also love the sound that the electric motor makes. Again, it's an in-house developed EV electric motor, and that sound is a genuine sound that the electric motors make as well. So there's nothing fake being piped in, so I really appreciate that. The seats in this truck are also extremely comfortable and supportive. They hold you in place nicely as well. for a little bit more aggressive cornering, but they're also not too constricting. I love the way this truck feels. There's not a single squeak and rattle in my particular test car as well. It feels nice and solidly made. Interior feels luxurious. The tech in this car is also impressive. I had a chance to try Rivian's driver assistance tech, and it kind of works the way Tesla's does, where you pull on the transmission stalk here, the right stalk, twice toward you, it'll activate. And right here you can see it kind of activated, but highway assist is unavailable. It does offer the lane keep assist, of course, but it doesn't offer true hands-free driving. Rivian says that at some point that'll come, but for now, you have to keep your hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. It's not a true hands-free system just yet, but again, Rivian is kind of right up there in terms of tech, in terms of build quality for such an for such a new company. It's very impressive. And the visibility in this truck is really good. I can see out of the front, the side, the rear quite nicely. The one thing it's lacking, however, is a digital camera rearview mirror. I also love the transparent roof that allows you to frost or defrost it at the push of a button in the touchscreen. And then, of course, there's the range. Now, this model that we're driving is rated at 371 miles on a full charge. It has been consistently cold, and it's snow on the ground in my local area here in South Central PA. So in my weeks worth of testing, I averaged around 315 to 330 miles of actual range. On a full charge, it was showing 346, but I noticed that the trip computer was a little bit too optimistic, and it was definitely not showing that in real world driving. But hey, over 300 miles with the max pack and, frigid temperatures, 32 degree and below temperatures is pretty impressive any way you slice it. So this is actually one of the longer range EV trucks I've driven. The Chevrolet Silverado EV did even better, but that has a massive 200 plus kilowatt hour battery pack. This is around 140 kilowatt hours. So I'm impressed. I mean, I haven't had a chance to review a Cybertruck for you guys yet. I'm going to work on trying to get a hold of one to actually do a video on, but the Rivian is still a very, very impressive truck. And, I actually think that this is probably the truck that I would go for personally. I mean, yes, I haven't had a chance to drive the Cybertruck, but there's so many unique features about this. I love how Rivian has significantly improved underneath the skin. It's so much faster. It has real world range that is very excellent. It's got comfortable seats. It's got great tech. It's got good build quality. And it's also freaking fast as hell. I was not expecting this thing to be faster versus the quad motor launch edition that I tested, but still 2.8 seconds. Any way you slice it would be impressive for a car that's a supercar, let alone a pickup truck. And what's awesome is you can attain that speed so easily, and it really just makes me want to do it over and over again, which, by the way, we're going to do it again just because we can. It's already in launch mode. Continue holding both pedals. Oh! 2.86 there. That's with it more going slightly uphill. Wow. I mean, yes, this truck is bloody expensive, but you can't argue with the entire package. Although it does make me question whether the tri-motor is worth it, because remember, you could save yourself about 25 grand and just go for the dual motor, add the performance package, and that'll still do 0 to 60 in the mid threes. And I think that could probably be the sweet spot for the R1T. So after spending a full week with the brand new 2025 Rivian R1T, I have to say, when I first had a chance to test this vehicle out about a year ago when I borrowed my friend Tori's R1T, I was very impressed with the overall package, because remember, Rivian is a brand new car company. They've only been on the market for the last, I want to say, 5 years per se, but they've actually done a lot for themselves, and they've really proven that they can build an electric truck, an electric SUV that people want, because last year in America, Rivian managed to sell a little under 16,000 units. Now that may not sound like a lot when Ford sells like 800,000 F-150s. However, remember, this is a truck that isn't cheap. This thing starts at just under $70,000. As tested, this model here is a little over 106 grand. So around 16,000 units is a pretty decent number. In fact, the R1S, the SUV version of this, Rivian sold nearly 20,000 units. And then, of course, later next year, early next year, they're going to have the R2 come out. And then, of course, there's going to be the R3. So Rivian is looking to expand their portfolio in the US with more affordable models. But for those of you who essentially want an electric premium truck that offers a ton of range, this is still one of my favorite out there. As you guys saw, acceleration is just batshit crazy. 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds is totally unnecessary. I personally think that the dual motor performance variant is probably enough for most people. That's going to get to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. Of course, there's the base version, which will do it in 4.5 seconds, which is still ridiculously fast. The long range battery pack, or the max range battery pack that this model we have here, We actually managed to go a little over 300 miles of range in our actual testing. That's in kind of cold temperatures. So I imagine this truck, when you have it in conserve mode in more ideal situations, can easily break that 400-mile barrier. So Rivian did a fantastic job with the actual real-world range. So range anxiety is no longer a thing. I'm also looking forward to for them to basically standardize the NAC plug. Right now, you can take this to a Tesla supercharger, but again, it requires that adapter, which Rivian, I believe, will include if you purchase this 2025 model year. The interior of this vehicle, surprisingly, is also really well done. It's got luxurious materials, comfortable seats. It's got a ton of space on the inside as well, much more space versus a lot of the traditional midsize trucks out there. And while the bed isn't quite as long as I'd like it to be, it is still very usable, along with the gear tunnel, along with the frunk, along with the underbed storage. This is a ridiculously practical truck without some of the criticisms and just controversy that you get with the Tesla Cybertruck. Because while a lot of you probably are thinking, well, the Cybertruck has this, it has that, that is definitely a vehicle that you either love or hate. Me personally, I think the Cybertruck is cool. I still haven't had a chance to review one for you guys yet. I'm going to hopefully work on that sometime when the weather starts warming up a little bit. But for those of you who want a more conventional truck, I personally think the Rivian R1T is one of my favorite vehicles out there. I just personally also think that the dual motor one is going to suffice, because like I said earlier, about 70 grand for the dual motor standard battery pack. If you want the larger battery pack, it's going to cost you around $7,000 more. Add another 7 grand if you want the max battery pack. That's the one that'll do 420 miles of range. The tri-motor, like I'm showing you here, starts at $99,900. So it's a pretty steep $23,000 extra to go to the tri-motor. That's going to unlock those extra driving modes. It's going to unlock the extra power, of course. You can essentially get a dual motor performance be priced similar to this, because the dual motor performance, essentially you have to add like the power tonneau cover top, the premium audio system, for example, the dynamic glass roof. That's going to cost you almost 100 grand for a dual motor performance with those options. So really, Rivian also throws in a lot of additional features for the tri-motor, and that's partly the reason why it appears to be $21,000, 23 grand more expensive. But in reality, the company really only charges around 5 grand more for the tri-motor. So if you kind of look at it from that angle, it's kind of a decent deal. Keep in mind, of course, there's a lot of competition. The Tesla Cybertruck starts at around 75 grand. The Ford F-150 Lightning starts at around 63 grand. Then, of course, there's also the GM trucks from Chevy, the Silverado, and the Sierra EV. Those can also be around $90,000 to $100,000. So there is a lot of other competitors out there, but for those of you who want something that's, again, the OG, that offers a lot of flexibility, a lot of practicality, and also a lot of range, you should definitely put the latest Rivian R1T at the very top of your list. With all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Rivian R1T in the tri-motor configuration. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.